So I'm going to introduce Lisa Reed. I don't want to lose anything, so I'm going to read. Lisa will look at enhancing learning through technology by presenting her experience with different technologies in courses. But I'd like to talk a little bit about Lisa's professional background. She's a graduate of Railroads, MA in Distributed Learning, as well as an associate faculty member, and enjoys seeing the education experience through both sides of the lens. She also has a Bachelor of Education from the University of Victoria, and she has taught K-12 for more than 20 years in the Cowichan Valley, and has been associate faculty with Railroads since 2008. She's had occasional contracts with Open School, WeTraffic, Virtual School Society, and various other online learning organizations. She has served on her school district as a tech mentor and for a brief time as a technology coordinator. Please welcome Lisa Reed.
Thanks, Carlos. So first of all, I have to start with, I have a presentation, and because I didn't think this through exactly, I can't run it from here. So, it's going to be the old school little nod. There we are. Little nod when we need to advance, but I don't have too many slides. They're more just to help keep me on track. So Carlos asked if I would talk about adding that layer of educational technology to my practice. And a couple of years ago, where we first caught up, Carlos was doing his initial residency in the MA program in Learning and Technology. And I tried to not just follow that, standing up on this stage and espousing on all the things that I wanted them to know. I tried to layer in the technology. So there's a couple of things with that, though, I guess the sticky traps. One is understanding the difference between teaching educational technology, which is something that I do in another capacity, and employing educational technology practices with your craft. So that's sort of some of the things that I want to touch on. I suppose one of the trickiest things with that, both with K-12 learners, which I'm going to talk about in a sec, that's my day job, and adult learners, is I think the big challenge in moving forward into that sort of realm of employing educational technology is not being afraid to give over some of the power and not being afraid to pull it back again. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that, particularly in relation to kids and the perception that we have that they are experts in educational technology. They're not. And sometimes the fear that adult learners are still coming to us with this fear of, okay, maybe they do email and Facebook, but they couldn't possibly employ educational technology, and they can. So it's that exchange that's a lot different than in a face-to-face setting. So that's my next point, is not buying into experts. And even though I had all those whole list of things that Carlos read out about me, that sounded really awesome even to me, I don't consider myself an expert. There's very few people I actually do consider an expert in educational technology, but I think a lot of people have a lot of expertise. And it's because you can't possibly know all there is to know. Maybe 35 years ago when I was in high school and the computer course consisted of, and lots of you will remember the people walking around with great maybe shoe boxes or bigger full of punch cards, and they would run the punch cards through, and that was the beginning of programming. Maybe then it was possible for somebody to know all there was to know about computer technology. I'm not even sure about that, but now that's off the table. We don't know any more about that. The little maze on the side is just my little comment about, because I rely on web-based tools a great deal, I do not have the internet memorized either. And so I'm always relying on little things to come my way. And this one, I won't read it out to you or make you read it, but it was just a little something that came to me one day from somebody. And what that is, the maze is made out of salt, and it is to challenge a slug. to come through. And if the slug makes it through the maze of salt, he's rewarded with a little bit of jam at the end and free entrance into the house. But it's the style of language that the person who wrote it up chooses. It's a very sort of medieval challenge that he's thrown down the salt gauntlet to the slug. And I just love that you can find stuff like that, it doesn't necessarily, this might not be something that you would pull into your lesson unless you were teaching about slugs and salt, but that people can make anything out of nothing. And so rather than a story about I had a slug infestation in my house, it's become this whole great thing. So we'll go on to the next thing. So that's my practice is evolving, and I had to bring this picture with me because Carlos will recognize it. My day job is teaching high school. Just recently, I had been at middle school for a number of years. Last year, our district reconfigured and the high school absorbed the 2 middle schools. So now I'm actually a high school teacher. I teach information technology. I do the yearbook. I taught leadership this year. I have an English 9 class. And I also taught textiles. And that's going to come in later on. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that because, no, it did not fit with my experience or anything else. And in fact, the job interview went like this. Can you sew at all? And I said, yeah. Can you sew on a button? The principal said pleadingly. And I said, yes, all right, I can sew on a button. So that's how I came to be the textiles teacher this year. Right. Thank God for YouTube videos because that is exactly how I learned to knit and crochet. I teach in a very traditional computer lab setting, and even my English class and my leadership classes I taught in there. And it's great because when I say, okay, we're going to look at this tool or do that thing, it's easily done. Not all teachers have that same access to technology that I do, so I'm really lucky in that regard. So I get to do both sides of that. I get to actually teach the information technology. I teach them how to do web design, how to do coding, etc. But then in my non-technology classes, I use the educational technology to support my outcomes. So I'm really lucky in that regard. One of the things my district has employed in the last few years, though, is a very open bring your own device policy. And I'm grinning because it's not met with glee from most teachers. It's been up until a couple of years ago, the battle was put your phone away, put your iPod away, please put your device away and listen to what I have to say. And here's, the handout. It's not there, but it's getting there. And so in that regard, we've really increased our wireless capacity. And I know that might not be a politically friendly thing to say in Victoria. I know you've been having some battles in Victoria School District with Wi-Fi and is it safe to bring in and ought we be encouraging children to be on their devices when they should be in school learning. And all of that, to me, is speaking to the shift that we all need to make towards educational technologies and understand them and not be fearful. And I think the fear is sort of a big one. And my last comment about digital natives is just that when I first heard that term, this is going back a few years now, there was the digital natives, which was basically any kid who was born after the advent of the iPod, and the rest of us, who were then referred to as the digital immigrants. And I thought, oh, that's a pretty sexy term. I kind of like that. And I liked it for about maybe 6 months. And then I started to really not like it. And the reason why is because it comes back to that whole fear thing again. We can go forward quite easily and blithely thinking, oh, well, these children are experts. We don't have to teach them stuff. And it's quite the opposite. They've become expert consumers. And they're fearless in their consumption of technology, but they are missing a whole big chunk of the back end of that. And so we kind of are in that. I think we're getting past it now. I think the fear part for the older learner, the adult learner, I think that is rapidly diminishing. And I think we're coming back to meet in the middle and not seeing the kids as experts as we used to, because they're not. Okay. And so that's my day job. This is my fun job. This is me just the other day. And where I'm parked is outside waiting for an oil change. And I was working on this presentation in my car. And I make the point because of the power of mobile technology that I could make use of that time. I dropped my daughter off for an appointment. I thought, okay, I've got time for an oil change. And then I thought there was a lineup, and I thought, okay, what am I going to do? Oh, sweet, I have my device here. I can actually work on this. And so the fun part is being able to talk about what I'm passionate about and also be able to display it in the way that I want to. So even though I am not fully employing that mobile device today, I still need a sidekick. It's a big part of what I do. And that leads me to want to talk about the difference between K-12 learners and adult learners. And this is what I found in a nutshell. There's not a whole lot of difference. And I know these pictures are hard to see, and it doesn't matter what's on them. What they are is from my residency last summer. I gave the learners a challenge of designing their own learning theory. Basically, the course was about learning theorists. And so I did up a little poster and challenge them to create their own. If you were going to create your own learning theory, what would it look like? And it was a little bit of that leap of faith because we had been immersed in technology and we'd been using Moodle and we'd been having discussions and there was Prezis and there was all the other forms of technology that you would expect to see. And then one day I came out with poster board and Mr. Sketchfelds, and they were just like my middle school kids. There are different approaches, of course, to adult education. Of course there are. But at the soul, at the heart of the learner, they're all the same. They all want to have fun with their learning. They want to be engaged in their learning. And it doesn't have to always look like one thing or the other. So my learning from that example was just that I needed to remember to not always go to the most technological solution. Sometimes it's just fun and it anchors your learning to sit down and have that tactile process of using markers and paper and talking around a table, not hunched over your individual device and trying to get somewhere. So that was just a little comment about, yes, I'm all for the educational technology side of it, but I'm all for all the modalities that a learner would like to access. And so it's not a presentation unless I put my children into it. So this is just some of the things that I use on a regular basis. And when we're having our table talk session, I would love to talk to you about any of them. These are the things that I use regularly. Even in my face-to-face class, and this is something that I could actually do the whole 15 minutes on, I use Moodle in my face-to-face classes. I use it to organize and push out links and store information, partially, but the big thing I use it for is discussion. And I found that there's a variety of reasons why it works, but very often for that child that you never hear their voice in class, and I'm certain that this is the same for adult learners as well. You may not hear their voice in class, but you will see their voice online. If they have that time to think and process, then they will engage, and it's just one more opportunity. So I always employ, I shouldn't say that. I try very hard to, as much as I possibly can, employ online discussion, even in a face-to-face setting, because I think it's so powerful. So I would always have, I use Moodle, it's my preference. Any course management system that provides that opportunity is great. I would really want to have my learners have access to some sort of photo editing to be able to express their learning visually, I think is really important. That's why I mentioned that. Some kind of presentation tool, I don't care what it is, Prezi or Keynote or PowerPoint, it doesn't matter, but to be able to present their learning, again, in some way that's meaningful to them. Maybe it's visually, maybe it's text, maybe it's a combination of both. And then YouTube, I have a little application. I haven't actually used it in a while, but it's a web-based interactive tool, Wordle, and I know you've seen them. It's almost gotten to the point where I'm actually, frankly, a little bit sick of Wordles, but they're so magical and powerful, and I think they still serve a really good purpose. So even though I kind of have drifted away from them, I still think it's a fantastic tool, and it's free. Read, Write, Think, I use a lot, and I use it with my adult learners, and I use it with my K-12. And you'd be surprised how people will dig into stuff, even if it seems kind of elementary. I use blogs, and excuse me, this is going to be difficult for me. My children are leaving the teenage years, and so my direct access to the culture of the internet is going to be moving out of home in the next couple of years. And I don't know what I'm going to do then, because I'm not sure that I will have the language and the pictures and the memes and the mashups that come to me through my own kids. So I'm not too sure. I might have to shift out of high school if I can't speak their language anymore. But I really do employ the culture of the internet, and it's just speaking their language. It's just mentioning something that, if you know of a viral video, and then suddenly, oh, I know that too, and your culture, your experiences are brought together. And I think it's important to be dialed into that. And Scratch and Code.org are a couple of other interactive web-based tools that I used. I think that is probably my last one. Go ahead. There we go. So these are just some screenshots from Read, Write, Think, and I can talk some more about them if you come to my table and explain what those are about. Go ahead. There we go. And this one was my favorite one. I've actually not used this one before. I just discovered it last night. It's like fridge magnet poetry, but you do it interactively on the Read, Write, Think site. And so I took the text from Shall I Compare You to a Summer's Day, which might be something that I would teach in English 9, and then I rearranged the poem to make my own poem out of the words in the text. And that's just quick and easy, simple. That would be exposure to vocabulary or whatever, but it's just a different way of approaching it. That's easy to use. You don't have to have a sign-in or a login or anything else. You just go to the internet and do it. And it's a quick lesson, easily done. So that's just my new favorite thing. Go ahead. And so this is Wordle. I was talking about this a minute ago. This is the same text, Shall I Compare Thee to a Summer's Day? But this time I've entered it into the Wordle site. And if you don't know Wordle, again, I'm more than happy to talk to you about it. But all it does is create word art out of the text. But why it's special, and this one isn't as obvious in these iterations of it, but why it's special is because it employs tagging technology. So the most frequently used words are the most prominent. And so I use that actually in a variety of ways when I'm doing sessions with kids, that it's not, how would you, for example, if there's a text from a speech, what is this politician speaking more about? Oh, this politician's speaking about business and capital and employment. What's this politician speaking about? Oh, family and daycare and home and heart. So there's different ways to use this particular application besides just the pretty pictures, but it's also pretty. Okay. And this is it. So here I am in my two capacities, I guess. And I've just included some contact information there if you want to find me. But the one picture, that's me attending an art gallery, and the theme of the evening was to be French. And I didn't really know how to be French. And I suppose if I'd had a baguette under my arm or a beret on, maybe that would have been better. But that was my trying to immerse myself in the culture. And the other picture, yes, that is a minion hat. And yes, I did teach myself how to crochet that hat from watching YouTube videos on the internet. So I always can relate to the frustration that a learner has in trying to learn something new when, as I say, I took on that challenge from being able to sew on a button to actually creating a minion hat, which not only was a great example, but it immersed me in their culture for a little while. And if you don't know who the minions are, that's okay. It's all right. And that's it. I think that's good enough. So if you want to come to my table when we break off into tables, any of this stuff I'd be glad to share with you in greater detail. But thank you for the opportunity to come and share what I have with you today. And thank you to my sidekick there for doing the presentation. That was awesome. Thank you.